Okay, so continuing with our lesson on secularisation, the final theories, we are going to look at cultural defence and cultural transition. And these are both two explanations for higher religious rates than we would expect in the UK and in other regions as well, for two particular reasons that Steve Bruce has given us. So the first one, cultural defence. Okay, so cultural defence. The idea is that people are actually remaining religious in some communities as a response to racism. And that means that people will kind of have those religious communities, and it will forge those connections even closer, and it will create an even stronger identity for people who feel maybe marginalized or where there's prejudice against people, and it makes these communities stronger. So this is the argument Steve Bruce has. We've seen this in Iran before the revolution in 79. We've seen this with Catholicism in Poland towards the end of the Russian rule. We also have seen this actually in America and in the UK with rising engagement with Islam since 9/11. So it's where religion actually provides a focal point in the defence of a group, whether it's a national group, an ethnic group, a local group. It could be a migrating group who have moved to the UK and feel that they're not fully accepted into society. So religion becomes a focal point for their identity. And it can be in response to a struggle with an external force. And that can be in lots of different ways. And one really good example that I've got an evidence for that I'll give you is the increase in women choosing to wear a hijab since 9/11. And also an overall increase in engagement with Islam. So we're actually seeing since 9/11, daughters and granddaughters from, so second generation, third generation immigrants to the UK and to America, actually more religious than the initial family, the first generation family that migrated. And this is, according to Steve Bruce, for reasons of cultural defence. So a really nice study here is by Yvonne Haddad. And this was a 2007 academic paper. And it was in the Sociology of Religion journal. So this is a really reliable source. This study, and this is a direct quote from the abstract of the journal article, this study argues that a process of re-Islamization, now you can use that as a concept in your essays, has accelerated, some lovely language here, in the aftermath of 9/11, as an increasing number of young people, the daughters of immigrant Muslims, and then the granddaughters as well, are assuming their public identity by wearing the hijab. So there may be now teenagers doing their A-levels, maybe some of you are watching this, who've chosen to wear the hijab, and maybe their parents didn't. So there's an acceleration in the engagement in religion. So kind of becoming more serious and more committed to the teachings of that religion. And this is in response to racism, prejudice, and maybe marginalization within society since the events of 9/11. Okay, so cultural defence is a really interesting argument. If you think about the beginnings of the Methodist Church, that was the black community setting up their own churches because they felt alienated from the white churches. So we've seen this over the years. There's quite a lot of examples to look at. Cultural transition is slightly different because cultural transition is technically only a short-term argument. If people are becoming more religious when they first move to a new country. So immigrants, Irish, African, Caribbean, Muslim, Hindu, they've come to the UK. They're looking for their community. They're looking for connection. They're looking for some recognition and to have their sense of, support network in the community. Herberg describes this in terms of immigration to the USA, but we've seen it with the UK as well. But the criticism of this is if cultural transition was the reason, eventually after generations it wouldn't be necessary. So what we're seeing with this kind of accelerated religion, with the cultural defence argument, cultural transition argument doesn't stand up to that. So you could talk about this in an essay and then say, however, this ignores or it doesn't explain why some communities are becoming more religious with generations rather than less religious. Ultimately, both of these are arguments against secularisation because they are seeing higher than average rates of religion. Okay.